Settle in, turn down the lights, maybe check over your shoulder one last time because today we're diving headfirst into the digital abyss. I'm your host, Contact Maid, and on today's channel, we are counting down the absolute most spine-tingling, shiver-inducing paranormal TikToks that took 2025 by storm. These aren't your average jump scares or cleverly edited pranks, oh no. These are the clips that had the internet buzzing, the ones that made even the most hardened skeptics pause and wonder, what in the world did I just see? Each one of these short videos packed a paranormal punch that left millions questioning reality. These 10 videos, plucked from the endless scroll of TikTok, have achieved legendary status, going viral not just for their shock value, but for the profound sense of mystery and the utterly unexplained phenomena they captured. We're talking about moments that defy logical explanation, instances where the veil between our world and something else seems to have thinned to a terrifying degree. From shadowy figures caught in derelict buildings to objects moving with impossible intent, these TikToks are the real deal, or at least they present a compelling case that has left experts and everyday viewers alike scratching their heads and frankly sleeping with the lights on. So the big question before we even begin this descent into the unknown is, where do you stand? Are you a believer in the paranormal? Do you think there are forces and entities out there that we don't understand? Or are you convinced there's a rational explanation for everything, no matter how eerie it seems? I genuinely want to know. Drop a comment down below and tell me your thoughts, share your theories, because what we're about to witness is going to spark a whole lot of debate. Get ready, because the countdown of the top 10 paranormal TikToks of 2025 starts right now. Our number 10 spot takes us to an old, dilapidated house on the outskirts of a small town, a place locals had whispered about for generations. They said it was cursed, haunted by the spirit of its last owner who vanished without a trace. A young TikToker, let's call her spectral explorer Sarah, known for her bravery, or perhaps recklessness, decided she was going to spend a night there, live streaming her investigation. She'd heard all the stories, of course, the cold spots, the disembodied whispers, the fleeting shadows. But Sarah was a hardened urban explorer, not easily spooked. She set up her gear, a couple of night vision cameras, an EMF detector, and her trusty smartphone, ready to document whatever the night held. The first few hours were deceptively calm. Sarah walked her viewers through the decaying rooms, cobwebs hanging like macabre decorations, dust motes dancing in the beam of her flashlight. The air was heavy, oppressive, and the silence was the kind that presses in on your eardrums. She'd occasionally point out an odd sound, a creak of the floorboards settling, the wind whistling through a broken pane of glass, but nothing overtly paranormal. Her EMF meter chirped sporadically but offered no consistent readings. "It's quiet," she whispered to her phone. Almost too quiet. And as any seasoned horror fan knows, that's usually when things are about to take a very dark turn. It was around 2 a.m., deep in the heart of what they call the witching hour, when Sarah was exploring the master bedroom. The room was large, with a crumbling four-poster bed and a shattered vanity mirror. She was panning her phone camera slowly across the far wall, describing the peeling wallpaper when it happened. For a split second, almost too quick to register, a tall, shadowy figure seemed to materialize in the darkened doorway behind her, visible only on her phone screen as she panned. It wasn't just a trick of the light. It had a distinct humanoid shape, a denser black against the already dark hallway. Sarah didn't see it immediately with her own eyes. She continued talking for a few more seconds, but then her live chat started exploding with comments. "Behind you! Did you see that?" Shadow figure. Her blood ran cold. She froze, then slowly turned, her flashlight beam cutting a nervous arc through the darkness. Nothing. The doorway was empty. But when she reviewed the footage mere moments later, her hands trembling, there it was. A fleeting, undeniable silhouette of something that should not have been there. The clip went massively viral, not for a jump scare, but for the chilling subtlety of the apparition. The figure was there for perhaps less than a second, but it was enough. It didn't interact. It didn't make a sound. It just appeared. And then it was gone. Viewers debated endlessly. A trick of the light? A pareidolia effect? Or had Sarah truly captured evidence of a spectral inhabitant? The way it seemed to absorb the light, its defined edges, and its brief, silent appearance made many lean toward the paranormal. Sarah, visibly shaken, ended her live stream shortly after, admitting she was too unnerved to continue. That brief, terrifying glimpse secured its place as one of the most talked-about paranormal TikToks of the year. Coming in at number 9 is a clip that will make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and it comes from a TikToker named Echo Hunter Mike. Mike fancies himself a bit of a historian and an urban explorer, specializing in abandoned locations with dark pasts. For this particular TikTok, he ventured into the notorious Blackwood Creek Asylum, a place that had been shuttered for over 50 years, its corridors rumored to echo with the tormented cries of its former patients. Armed with his phone and a high-sensitivity microphone, Mike was hoping to capture some EVP's electronic voice phenomena. He wasn't expecting to get something quite so clear, or quite so chilling. The asylum was a truly grim location. Paint peeled from the walls like sunburnt skin, old gurneys rusted in hallways, and a palpable sense of sorrow clung to the air. Mike was narrating his exploration in hushed tones, walking through what appeared to be an old day room, sunlight struggling to penetrate the grimy windows. He was explaining some of the brutal treatments patients once endured there, his voice respectful, but tinged with the thrill of the unknown. He paused near a row of barred windows, commenting on the eerie silence of the place, a silence that felt heavy and expectant. It was in that moment of quiet contemplation, as Mike held his phone steady, that it was captured. A faint but undeniably clear whisper, seemingly coming from the empty space right beside him. It wasn't an ambient sound, not the wind nor the building settling. It was a voice, distinctly male, and it seemed to utter a single mournful word. "Help!" Mike, engrossed in his narration, didn't hear it with his own ears at that exact moment. He continued filming for another minute or so, completely unaware of the spectral plea he'd just recorded. The discovery came later, during his review of the footage. As he listened back with headphones, the word "help" cut through the silence with chilling clarity. His reaction, which he later posted in a follow-up, was one of pure shock and disbelief. He isolated the audio, amplified it, and even ran it through software to clean it up. There was no mistaking it. The voice was raspy, weak, and filled with an indescribable sadness. It sounded as if it emanated from the very walls themselves, a residual cry from a long-suffering soul. The TikTok exploded. Skeptics tried to debunk it, suggesting it was the wind or Mike himself breathing, but the clarity and the distinct vowel sounds made those explanations fall flat for many. The word was too formed, too intentional. Was it a trapped spirit, still pleading for release from the asylum's tormented past? Or perhaps a residual haunting, an echo of a cry made decades ago, imprinted on the very fabric of the location? Whatever the source, that single whispered word transformed Mike's urban exploration video into a viral sensation and a deeply unsettling piece of potential paranormal evidence. Now we arrive at our number 3 spot, and folks, this one is an absolute showstopper. This is the clip that had everyone double-checking their own bedrooms before going to sleep. It comes from a teenager, we'll call her Chloe, who had been complaining to her parents for weeks about strange occurrences in her room. Objects moving slightly, doors creaking open, an unsettling feeling of being watched. Naturally, her parents were skeptical, attributing it to an overactive imagination or the house settling. Frustrated and determined to get proof, Chloe decided to set up her phone to record while she was doing her homework. The video starts innocently enough. Chloe is sitting at her desk, back mostly to the camera, headphones on, seemingly engrossed in her studies. Her bedroom looks like any typical teenager's room. Posters on the wall, clothes draped over a chair, a collection of knickknacks on her dresser. For the first few minutes of the recording, nothing happens. It's just ambient room noise, the faint sound of music from her headphones. You almost start to think, okay, nothing to see here. But then, Your eyes are drawn to a small teddy bear sitting on the edge of her neatly made bed. Suddenly, with no warning, the teddy bear slides a good 6 inches across the bed as if nudged by an invisible hand. Chloe doesn't react. Her back is still to it and her headphones are on. A few seconds later, a pencil rolls off her nightstand and clatters to the floor. Again, she doesn't seem to notice. The tension builds. Then, the main event. A framed photo on her dresser, a picture of her and her friends, violently tips over, face down, with a sharp crack. This time, Chloe jumps, startled by the noise. She whips off her headphones, looking around in confusion. She spots the fallen picture frame and her eyes go wide. She then notices the displaced teddy bear. The look on her face is a mixture of fear and a strange sort of validation. She rushes to her phone, and the recording ends. When Chloe uploaded this compilation of events to TikTok, it went supernova. The movements weren't subtle, they were deliberate, and in the case of the picture frame, almost aggressive. There were no visible strings, no pets in the room, no open windows causing a draft strong enough to move these objects in such a manner. Debate raged, of course. Some suggested elaborate trickery, perhaps a hidden accomplice or clever editing. But the raw, unedited feel of the footage, Chloe's genuine reactions, and the escalating nature of the activity convinced millions that they were witnessing genuine poltergeist phenomena. The clip was analyzed frame by frame, with paranormal investigators and skeptics alike weighing in. Was it a cry for attention? Or was Chloe genuinely being targeted by an unseen force in her own bedroom? This TikTok didn't just go viral. It became a cultural touchstone for unexplained domestic disturbances in 2025. At number 4, we have a TikTok that taps into a primal fear for many creepy dolls. And this isn't just any doll. This is one that seems to have a life of its own. The video was posted by a user named Antique Collector 88, a woman who collects vintage and antique items with a particular fondness for old dolls. She had recently acquired a porcelain doll from an estate sale, a rather unsettling-looking thing with glassy eyes and a faded Victorian-era dress. She'd placed it on a shelf in her study, among other curiosities. The TikTok itself is short, almost deceptively simple. The collector is filming her new acquisition, talking to her followers about its history. She mentions that the previous owner had warned her the doll was unsettling and had been kept locked away in an attic for decades. As she's speaking, her camera is focused on the doll's face. It's propped up, staring blankly ahead, its painted smile somehow more unnerving than a frown. She pans the camera away for just a moment, maybe to show another item on the shelf. When she pans back to the doll, something is terrifyingly different. The doll's head, which had been facing straight forward, is now distinctly turned to its left, its glassy eyes seeming to stare directly into the camera lens. The movement wasn't captured on camera, only the before and after, but the change in position is undeniable. The collector lets out a small, startled gasp. "Wait, did it? Did its head just move?" she stammers. She nervously reaches out and prods the doll's head, showing that it's stiff and not easily turned. The abruptness of the change is what made this clip so effective and so widely shared. Viewers were, understandably, creeped out. Theories abounded: a prank, a string, a cleverly edited cut. But the collector insisted the footage was genuine, and she posted follow-up videos expressing her own fear and confusion. Many pointed out the sheer malevolence in the doll's new gaze, as if it had become aware it was being filmed. Whether a hoax or a genuine paranormal event, this TikTok preyed on the uncanny valley fear of dolls, making it a viral sensation. Our number 5 spot takes us deep into the wilderness, where a lone hiker's TikTok recording captured something truly unsettling. The TikToker, Trailblazer Tom, was documenting a solo hike through a remote national forest. He was filming the scenery, talking about nature, and sharing hiking tips. The sun was beginning to set, casting long, eerie shadows through the trees. Tom was panning his camera across a thick grove of pine trees, admiring the fading sunlight filtering through the branches. "Absolutely beautiful out here, folks," he was saying. But it does get a bit spooky as the light fades. As his camera moved, it briefly passed over a dark shape standing behind a large tree trunk, deep within the woods. It was fleeting, easy to miss, but it was there. Tom didn't notice it in the moment. He continued his hike and thought nothing more of it until he was back home, editing his footage. While reviewing the clips, he saw it. Pausing that video, he zoomed in. The figure was tall, slender, and appeared almost black. It was humanoid, but with proportions slightly off, too lanky, limbs too long. It was standing perfectly still, seemingly watching him. The way it blended with shadows made details impossible to discern, adding to its mysterious and menacing aura. The moment he posted the zoomed-in clip to TikTok, it ignited a firestorm of speculation. What was this thing? Was it another hiker in dark clothing? Was it an animal distorted by shadow and distance? Or was it something else entirely? A cryptid? A creature of folklore? Or something not of this world? The figure's stillness was particularly unnerving. It just observed. Many viewers felt intense dread watching the clip, as if the figure exuded palpable menace. Some claimed to see faint eyeshine, others debated its height and posture. Tom was thoroughly spooked and said he'd avoid that forest section altogether. The Watcher in the Woods, as it became known, remains unexplained and deeply unsettling footage, a reminder that in the wild, you might not be as alone as you think. For our number 6 entry, we look to the night skies where a TikTok user captured footage that sent UFO enthusiasts and skeptics into a frenzy of debate. The video was filmed by a young woman named Maria who was stargazing from her backyard in a relatively rural area far from city light pollution. She had her phone mounted on a small tripod, initially hoping to capture some meteorites from a predicted shower, but she ended up recording something far stranger and much more compelling. The video begins with a wide shot of the dark, star-dusted sky. Suddenly, a small point of light appears moving rapidly from right to left. At first, it could be mistaken for a satellite or a high-altitude aircraft. But then, a second light appears, then a third and a fourth, all seemingly emerging from the same general area of the sky. These lights were not moving in a conventional, linear path. They were darting around erratically, making sharp, impossible turns and occasionally blinking in and out of existence. They moved with a speed and agility that defied any known terrestrial aircraft capabilities. Maria can be heard on the audio, her voice a mixture of awe and trepidation. "What is that, guys? Are you seeing this?" she exclaims, clearly baffled by the aerial display unfolding above her. The lights, sometimes appearing as solid orbs, other times more like shimmering streaks, performed a silent, almost balletic dance in the night sky for nearly 2 minutes. They would cluster together, then rapidly disperse, only to regroup moments later in a different formation. There was no sound, no engine roar, nothing to indicate a conventional explanation. The footage quickly went viral with hashtags like #UFO sighting and #alien lights trending for days. Aviation experts were consulted, but most were stumped. The movements were too fast, the turns too acute for drones, planes, or helicopters. Some suggested military exercises, but the area wasn't known for such activity, and the lights didn't resemble flares or known experimental aircraft. The lack of any sound also puzzled many, as aircraft capable of such maneuvers would typically be incredibly loud. Naturally, the UFO community hailed it as some of the most compelling evidence of extraterrestrial visitation in years. Skeptics proposed everything from high-altitude atmospheric phenomena to a cleverly orchestrated drone show, though coordinating such a display in a remote area without detection seemed unlikely. Maria herself stood by her footage, insisting it was unedited and that she had no explanation for what she witnessed. The celestial chaos TikTok remains a significant talking point, a tantalizing glimpse into the unknown that left millions gazing upwards with a newfound sense of wonder and maybe just a little bit of fear. Creeping into our number 7 spot is a TikTok that delivers a classic paranormal scare: the sudden appearance of a shadow person. This chilling clip was unintentionally captured by a TikToker named Liam the Cool, who was filming a fairly mundane day in the lifestyle video. He was just walking through his house, talking to the camera, giving his followers a tour of his newly redecorated living room. Honestly, he had no idea that he was about to capture something far more interesting and infinitely more terrifying in the background. Liam is walking backwards, phone held selfie style as he moves from his living room towards his kitchen. Behind him, a hallway stretches into the dimmer part of the house. As he's enthusiastically describing his new paint color, a dark, human-like shadow detaches itself from the deeper gloom at the end of the hallway and swiftly glides across the passage from one side to the other before disappearing into a room. It's incredibly quick, like a blink and you'll miss it moment, but it's undeniably there. The shadow is tall, vaguely masculine in shape, and moves with a smoothness that doesn't suggest a normal person walking. Liam, completely oblivious, continues his video for another minute, eventually ending the recording without ever realizing he wasn't alone. It was only when he was editing the footage later that he spotted the fleeting figure. The moment he highlighted it and re-uploaded the specific segment, the clip blew up. The shadow person is distinct enough not to be mistaken for a trick of the light or a cast shadow from Liam himself, as it moves independently and with clear direction. The debate, as always, was fierce. Some viewers suggested it was another person in the house caught unawares. Liam, however, insisted he was home alone at the time, a fact that significantly amplified the creepiness factor. Others pointed to the specific characteristics of shadow people folklore, their dark, featureless forms, their quick, darting movements, and their tendency to be seen out of the corner of one's eye, or in this case, in the background of an unsuspecting video. The figure seemed too solid to be a mere shadow, yet too ethereal to be a physical person. The hallway horror TikTok, as it was dubbed, became a prime example of this common paranormal claim. The casual nature of the original video, juxtaposed with the sudden, eerie appearance of the shadow figure, made it particularly effective. It served as a chilling reminder that sometimes the most frightening things can happen when you least expect them, even when you're just filming a simple video in the perceived safety of your own home. Brace yourselves for number 8, because this one is pure nightmare fuel, especially if you've ever had that childhood fear of something lurking under your bed. This terrifying TikTok was posted by a user named No Sleep Nancy, and it shows a moment that would make anyone want to sleep with the lights on, or perhaps levitate. Nancy had been hearing strange scratching sounds from under her bed for several nights, and decided, with a mix of courage and probably a good deal of apprehension, to set up her phone to record under there while she was out of the room. The video is filmed from a low angle, showing the dusty, dark space beneath her bed. For a while, nothing happens. You see the usual underbed landscape, a forgotten sock, maybe a dust bunny or two, the vague outlines of the bed frame supports. The audio picks up faint creaks from the house settling, but otherwise, it's silent. Nancy had apparently left the room, hoping to capture the source of the scratching noises she'd been hearing. The anticipation builds as the viewer stares into the gloom, wondering what, if anything, will appear. Then, after about a minute of stillness, it happens. From the deepest shadows at the far side of the underbed space, a hand slowly emerges. And this is no ordinary hand. It appears pale, almost grayish, with long, slender fingers that uncurl slowly, as if reaching for something. The movement is deliberate, cautious, and utterly horrifying. There's no arm visible, just this disembodied hand questing out from the darkness. It stays there for a few agonizing seconds, fingers slightly twitching before slowly retracting back into the shadows from whence it came. Nancy, upon reviewing the footage, was understandably hysterical. She uploaded the clip with a caption full of terrified emojis, asking what in the world this could be. She swore she was home alone, that there was no one else in the house, and certainly no one hiding under her bed. The hand didn't look like a normal human hand. Its color was off, its movement strangely fluid and unnatural. It was the stuff of horror movies, made real on a TikTok feed. The video sparked immediate terror and intense debate. Was it a very clever prank using a prop hand? Some skeptics suggested this, but the movement seemed too organic for a simple prop on a stick. Could it have been a pet? Nancy insisted she had no pets. Paranormal enthusiasts pointed to stories of entities that manifest in partial forms, or even darker, more demonic explanations. Whatever it was, the image of that pale, questing hand emerging from the darkness under the bed seared itself into the minds of millions, making this one of the most viscerally terrifying TikToks of 2025. Nancy, by the way, reportedly started sleeping on the couch. Our number 9 spot is reserved for a moment that sent chills down the spines of live viewers and became an instant viral sensation for its sheer, inexplicable creepiness. This occurred during a late-night TikTok livestream hosted by Gaming Galahad, a popular streamer known for his horror game playthroughs and his generally unflappable demeanor. He was in his dedicated streaming room, a soundproofed space in his basement, deep into a particularly tense section of a new survival horror game. His audience was engaged, the chat was lively, and everything seemed normal. Gaming Galahad was reacting to an in-game jump scare, laughing it off and talking to his viewers, when suddenly, a very distinct, soft whisper was heard on the audio feed. A whisper that was clearly not his own voice, nor was it part of the game's audio. It was a female voice, and it seemed to say something very close to his microphone, a phrase that many viewers later interpreted as "he sees you." The whisper was quiet, almost sibilant, but perfectly clear over the game sounds and Galahad's own commentary. The truly unsettling part, Gaming Galahad didn't react to it at all in the moment. He continued playing, seemingly oblivious to the spectral interjection. However, his live chat immediately exploded. Did anyone else hear that? Ghost whisper? What was that voice? Viewers started frantically trying to get his attention, spamming the chat with warnings and questions. It took a few minutes for him to notice the commotion, and when he finally paused the game to read the comments, a look of genuine confusion, then dawning horror, spread across his face. He rewound his stream playback live for his audience, and sure enough, there it was, the faint, eerie whisper. Galahad was visibly shaken. He swore he was completely alone in the house, that his streaming room was soundproof, and that no one else could have possibly been near his microphone. He even did a quick tour of the room with his camera to prove it was empty. The voice didn't sound like interference or a technical glitch. It had an organic human quality, albeit a very unsettling one. The clip of the whisper and Galahad's subsequent reaction was quickly isolated and shared across all social media platforms. Paranormal investigators analyzed the audio, with some claiming it was a clear Class A EVP, that's electronic voice phenomenon. Skeptics struggled to find a plausible explanation given the controlled environment of his streaming setup. Was it a spirit trying to communicate? A playful entity? Or something more sinister, given the context of the horror game he was playing? The Phantom Broadcaster incident left Gaming Galahad and his many thousands of viewers with a deeply unnerving mystery. And finally, at our coveted number 1 spot, the paranormal TikTok that absolutely broke the internet in 2025, leaving viewers utterly baffled and questioning the laws of physics. This extraordinary clip was filmed in a seemingly ordinary kitchen by a user named Everyday Astonishments. The TikToker wasn't trying to capture anything paranormal. They were simply filming a time-lapse of themselves baking a cake, with their phone propped up on a counter overlooking the kitchen workspace. The time-lapse shows the baker bustling about, mixing ingredients, opening and closing the oven. Standard stuff. But it's what happens in the background, unnoticed by the baker at the time, that catapulted this video to legendary status. On a small kitchen island, a metal whisk is lying flat. About halfway through the time-lapse, as the baker has their back turned and is busy at the oven, the whisk begins to slowly rise into the air. It doesn't just tilt up, it levitates horizontally, a good 6 inches off the surface of the island, completely unsupported. The whisk hangs there, suspended in mid-air, for what appears to be several seconds in real time, though it's faster in the time-lapse. There are no visible strings, no gusts of wind from an open window. The windows are clearly closed, and no indication of any external force acting upon it. The baker is still preoccupied, completely unaware of the bizarre phenomenon occurring just a few feet away. Then, as suddenly as it rose, the whisk clatters back down onto the island's surface with a distinct metallic sound. It wasn't until the baker reviewed their time-lapse footage that they saw the incredible event. They immediately uploaded the raw, unedited segment showing the levitating whisk, expressing their utter shock and disbelief. The clip went viral almost instantly. People watched it again and again, slowing it down, zooming in, desperately trying to find a rational explanation. Was it a magnet? Unlikely, given the smooth levitation and the non-magnetic material of most kitchen islands. CGI? The lighting and shadows on the whisk seemed perfectly consistent with the rest of the scene, making sophisticated CGI highly improbable for an amateur baker. This TikTok became the ultimate paranormal puzzle of the year. Experts in physics, special effects, and paranormal investigation all weighed in, but no consensus was ever reached. The sheer, blatant defiance of gravity, captured so clearly and casually, was what made it so compelling and so deeply unsettling. Was it a momentary, localized glitch in physics? A very powerful, very specific poltergeist manifestation? Or something else beyond our current understanding? The floating whisk remains the undisputed king of 2025's paranormal TikToks, a simple kitchen scene turned into an extraordinary mystery. And there you have it, the top 10 most chilling, unexplainable, and downright terrifying paranormal TikToks that haunted our feeds in 2025. From shadowy figures and disembodied voices to objects moving with minds of their own, these clips have certainly given us a lot to think about, and maybe a few sleepless nights too. It's fascinating and a little unnerving to see how everyday technology can capture these moments that seem to defy all logical explanation. The world is a strange place, and sometimes it feels like TikTok is giving us a front row seat to its most mysterious corners. Now I'm turning it back over to you. These were the videos that captivated millions, but I know that the paranormal isn't just something that happens on camera. Many of you have likely had your own strange encounters, those unexplainable moments that stick with you. So, I want to hear them. Head down to the comments section and share your own paranormal experiences. Have you seen a ghost? Heard an unexplained noise? Witnessed something you just can't rationalize? Let's create a space to share these stories, because sometimes knowing you're not alone in these experiences can be a huge comfort. Thank you so much for joining me, Contact Made, on this journey into the strange and unexplained. If you enjoyed this countdown and want to see more content that explores the darker, more mysterious side of life, then please make sure to hit that like button, and definitely follow or subscribe so you don't miss out on what's coming next. We've got plenty more chilling tales and baffling mysteries to uncover. Stay safe out there, keep your eyes open, and perhaps keep your cameras rolling. You never know what you might capture. Until next time, when we'll be diving into the most haunted objects ever sold online.